Okay, are we ready to go?
We're all here and we're ready to go.
Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay. I will now call to order the meeting of the directors of the Moynihan Station Development Corporation for Thursday, July 10th, 2014. I'd like to note for the record that this meeting is being webcast. I'd also like to note for the record that the directors have received the relevant written materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Consistent with the policy of our parent corporation, we welcome public comments on the items on our agenda. After each item is presented and comments are received from the directors, we will allow members of the public to provide comments. All comments should address only the item that is under consideration. Now, before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I would like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. If so, I would ask you to please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. We will then be sure that you may recuse yourselves from any discussion or vote with regard to such item or items.
Yes, Karen, good afternoon. In looking at the proposed contract for Jerry Hames, I think that I should recuse myself because, as we discussed at the last meeting, city holds participation interest in the mortgage, and so while I think as a technical legal matter I am not required to recuse myself, I think that I should.
Still have enough votes available?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay, good. Anyone else? Okay, the first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the directors' meeting of March 20th, 2014, which were in your packet. Do we have any questions, comments, additions, or deletions on these minutes?
I'll move them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Michael Evans will now give us his president's report. This report is for the director's information only, and no vote will be required.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, directors. Since we do have an agenda item regarding the construction contract, I wanted to start with the president's report and give you an update on where we are on construction. I'm very pleased with where we are, and I think we're in a very good place. We have been talking for several years about the critical 18-month window, and we're well into that. We're over a year into it, actually. And in fact, we are about to hit the 6 to 8 week kind of ring of fire here on the project, which it should be very productive, and Bruno's going to talk a little bit about it, but basically we're not working this weekend, but the following weekend we start basically a succession of weekends, nonstop except for Labor Day, through September, and marching across the north side of Penn Station, installing essentially the rest of the concourse steel. With that, I want to turn it over to Bruno to give a general update on what we've done since the last board meeting, and where we're heading over the next couple of months. Bruno?
Sure, thank you. Currently, we're 55% complete the project. Since the last meeting, we received 8 weekend outages. During these outages, we installed steel over platform 3, between platforms 3 and 4, cross track, and the north terrace over tracks 20 and 21. So structural steel and decking has now been installed from platforms 3 to 6 on the south side and over platforms 11 on the north. Amtrak has also relocated all 9 signals that conflicted with the new West End concourse structure, completing all the required signal relocations for the project. Starting next week, as Michael said, we'll have the first of 8 consecutive weekend outages. At the conclusion of these outages, approximately 70% of the West End concourse steel will have been installed. The remaining 30% to be installed through January of next year, at which point we'll switch to the fireproofing and the permanent enclosure, which will go from January through June. In C-Yard, we are finishing up the installation of CMU walls, fireproofing, and the stand height. We are on schedule to complete this work by mid-August of this year, and that will complete the C-Yard structures. In the plaza, we completed demolition of the North Plaza, which is on 8th and 33rd. We installed 75% of the new North Plaza steel. The stone steps on 8th Avenue, the north half, have been removed and are being refurbished off-site. And Skanska is currently prepping the surfaces to begin waterproofing next week. Areas of the north facade have been removed to facilitate the installation of new entrances and of the canopies. And we expect the plaza work, the North Plaza work, to be completed by the end of this year, and that's inclusive of the relocation of the southwest subway entrance on 33rd Street. For the Connecting Corridor project, we are approximately 20% complete. Excavation of 33rd Street has been completed. The temporary decking for 33rd Street is approximately 50% installed. They started demo within the Connecting Corridor, and this is inclusive of the south subway steps, which have been closed. And Skanska has developed a plan that will extend the south lane closure on 33rd Street to include south sidewalk. This will allow them to install the new framing for 33rd Street without a full 3-week closure as per the contract. New York City DOT has approved this new plan, and this closure has begun and work has commenced. We reached out to the 34th Street Partnership, and they reached out to the businesses in the community, and they all preferred closing the sidewalk in lieu of closing the street fully for 3 weeks. August and September should be extremely productive months, and there will be a lot of construction in place, so if anyone wants to have a site visit or a tour, feel free to reach out to me and we can arrange for that. I'll take you myself. Any questions?
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Thank you.
Just about the stairs, the post office stairs.
Sure.
What exactly does off-site refurbishment entail? Is it marble or granite?
It's granite,
It's granite.
it's power washed, it's treated, any kind of chips or cracks are repaired.
And how do they repair that? What do they fill it? They fill it?
They fill it, or they'll cut a piece out and replace it.
I see. So they'd be able to match the granite and they're able to...
100%.
Okay. And they're filling it with the granite material?
Correct, and they've all been numbered and documented, and they
Okay.
go back in the same places.
Great. Have you seen the work in progress at all?
Yes, we have.
And how is it coming
It's
out?
coming out beautiful.
If there are no more questions, that will conclude the President's report, so we can move on to the agenda items.
The next agenda item is authorization to amend the contract with Jerome Hames Realty for valuation services. And I would note that Anita will not be voting on this matter.
Okay, Karen? Yes. We have two tasks that Jerome Hames will be performing. This regards, first and foremost, the need to update the appraisal of the Farley Building property for the purposes of being able to renew the mortgage at the end of the year. Jerome Hames did the original appraisal and will be conducting an update of that, and therefore doing this work at a substantial discount and also in a timely manner. We've also requested that they update at the same time the appraisal that they did of the transferable development rights that are intended for the property across the street, the Penn West site. Again, the last time they did an appraisal of these was about 2 years ago. We think it's time, given market circumstances, to update that valuation and so that we can make informed decisions going forward in real estate negotiations. Again, they'll be doing an update, so they'll be performing this work at a substantial discount. So the formal request is for $68,750 added to the contract that covers both of those updates, and that would bring the total contract to $353,750.
Do we have any questions or comments from the directors?
Yes, just what's the timeline for this one to be done? What's the expected timeline?
We're going to issue the notice to proceed immediately for Hames. They're going to start with the TDR update, and then they will time the appraisal for the mortgage for early fall. But that work will be basically run through the fall because the appraisal needs to come out essentially in December to time with the mortgage rollover.
Okay.
Do we have any other comments or questions from directors? Do we have any comments from the public? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Michael will then present the next agenda item requesting authorization to amend a contract with AKRF for environmental consulting services.
Thank you, Karen. AKRF has been the environmental consultant on the Moynihan Station project since the late 1990s and has performed all of the environmental work that was required for the approved general project plan. This contract is about to expire, and there is only $18,000 left on it. This action is taken really as a prudent measure to ensure that there is enough left on the contract so that AKF can support the previous environmental work they've done. There may be the need for a tech memo going forward to assist us as we finalize plans for Phase 2 and the final development plan for the building. So this is really, though, meant for them to provide supplementary services based on their prior environmental work. We're not anticipating significant new environmental work, and we would come back to the board if there was major new environmental work, and we would entertain going out for a new contract at that point. But again, this is a small amount, $45,000 added to a contract that will take it up to a total amount of $5,350,000. And again, that's what we're seeking approval for.
And the date of the contract would be extended to what date?
End of 2015.
December 31, 2015.
Yes. And this
And any
contract.
other changes in the terms?
No
Any other
other
changes in the terms and
terms.
conditions?
No other changes in the terms and conditions. This contract and the Hames contract will be paid for out of Phase 2 pre-development funds that were set aside by the Port Authority when the building was purchased.
Well, there's one other change, right, which is that the party to the contract, right, we're assuming.
Yes, that's a good point, Anita. We're taking, by MSDC taking this action, this had been an old contract, which was the ESD board had originated this contract, and as part of our process of consolidating all of the contracts pertaining to the station redevelopment under MSDC, that will take effect with this action.
Do we have any other questions or comments from directors? Any comments from the public? Approval.
So moved.
Second. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's adopted. Then Michael will now present the next agenda item requesting authorization to amend the construction contract with Skanska USA Civil Northeast.
Thank you, Karen. The directors met last summer and affirmed the strategy on contingency developed by MSDC staff and Port Authority engineering when we encountered significant unforeseen conditions in Sea Yard as a result of the fracturing of the northern retaining wall in Penn Station. As the directors will recall, the C-Yard work was accomplished as a change order to the main West End Concourse contract, and that change order went into effect in January of 2013. Because of the retaining wall problems in the summer, we knew that we would need additional funds beyond the 10% budgeted contingency for the C-Yard work, and the decision was made to use West End Concourse contingency funds because it was all part of the same contract. Now that the C-Yard work has concluded, it is now time to essentially replenish the West End Concourse contingency pot so that our contractor can continue to move forward with that construction contract. We are asking to amend the contract for $9.8 million. That includes the delta on the C-Yard work of about 3.8. Also $3.5 million, which was the first major change order, and that was the connecting corridor work in the train shed. We carved that out and did that as a change order to the West End Concourse contract so that we were able to bid out the connecting corridor work and receive competitive bids, which we did. But we also need to take that into account in our management of the West End Concourse contingency. And last but not least, $2.4 million in required Farley building work that has taken place over the last 2 years as there have been issues either we have uncovered in the construction project or things that needed to be carried out to continue the successful operation and maintenance of the building. So if we combine those numbers, that gets us to the $9.8 million that we will be adding to the contingency amount for the main contract. Again, that's the West End Concourse and C-Yard contract. Just to note that the required Farley building work will be covered by non-Phase 1 local sources set aside for the Farley building, and therefore it will be about $7.3 million that will come out of the Phase 1 Management Reserve account, which is a combination of FRA-administered federal grants and MTA funds set aside for the project.
Questions, comments?
Well, Michael, how comfortable are you with the adequacy of the contingency at this point?
Anita, that's a good point, and I want to. We are going to take a look in executive session at the risk analysis that the Port Authority's risk team has put together. We initiated that at the direction of the board after the last meeting, and that was conducted over the course of the spring. And there will be a high-level summary shortly. But I think in my conversations with Bruno, we're very confident that our goal is that this is the only amendment to the contract. We're certainly very confident that it will take us through the following year to the final end of the contract. I think it is prudent for me to say that we will have a discussion about the budget when we accomplish milestone number 1, which is set for next summer, and that is the full enclosure of the West End Concourse. As you may recall, when we hit that milestone, we will largely be complete with the track outages, which are the biggest risk factor on the project and the biggest risk factor for project delays. So once we hit that milestone, our risk register shrinks substantially and our need for additional contingency recedes substantially. Given the problems that we've encountered with the structure because of its age and its challenges, and I will point out the perfect example is the steps off of 33rd Street, which if you walk past the building now are essentially gone.
I get to that, by the way.
And those were initially a change order of $500,000 because of poor steel that we uncovered, and every day that we pulled off more and more of the steps and the concrete, that change order went up and up to the point where it's about $1.5 million to completely reconstruct those steps. So we don't think that the rest of the 8th Avenue steps are in as bad a shape, but we are budgeting for deterioration. We think that the 31st Street steps are in better shape. We're going to find out next spring. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that right now this exciting eight-week period where we're putting up the new concourse steel, we're putting it up around an existing structure that eventually we're going to be integrating into. And so that's probably the other biggest challenge in terms of unforeseen condition type issues. But I think, and I'd like Bruno to chime in here, we think that this is essentially replenishes the contingency to, if you take away the work that was essentially not West End Concourse work that we've covered, this basically brings up the amount of contingency for the West End Concourse back to the original 10%. And I think that this should be sufficient to manage through the contract, and we're going to do our best to do that.
Yeah, we believe so. I think you hit it when you said milestone 1 is really the key point. Where we can see, we can make a determination if it's enough or it can even actually shrink at that point.
Any other questions or comments from directors? Do we have any comments from the public? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval of the amendment to the Skanska contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Michael, please continue with the next agenda item, requesting authorization for the corporation to enter into a contract with Skadden, Arps, Slate, Meagher & Flom, LLP.
Karen, if it's okay, can I handle both of the next two items together because they are related?
Yes.
Okay. The next two items pertain to the retaining of counsel. Yes. Pertain to the retaining of counsel to advise on real estate transaction work. We have interviewed the firm of Skadden Arps, which is a pre-qualified counsel on the pre-qualified counsel list developed by Empire State Development. We find them to be very talented, and that is most recently manifest in Skadden and the lead partner, Neil Rock, handling negotiations for Empire State Development on the Atlantic Yards project, which was considered to be done very successfully and very strategically. We have negotiated with Skadden that they will work for ESD's rates up to $250,000 or up to the signing of a term sheet with the developer, at which point we will set up an impressed account and they will operate under market rates similar to other development projects carried out by Empire State Development. It's very important for the governor and for the corporation to encourage the use of MBEs and MWBEs on professional services contracts that can sometimes be a challenge. And here, I think we have struck a great arrangement by having Bryant Rubino serve also as counsel on some of the transaction work. And they are an MBE firm that will be working in cooperation with Skadden Arps and working for MSDC. The contract amount there is for $200,000.
Mike, could you just in terms of the division of labor, who makes the determination of what the second firm does?
We're going to make that determination in consultation with the ESD legal team about the appropriate division of labor and frankly, the best allocation of the corporation's resources.
It's more efficient also. If you do it the other way, if Skadden were supervising the work or Brian Rubino was supervising the work, the other firm would have to be reviewing the work in order to make it its own. So you'd be paying sort of for a review that would be unnecessary. Yeah.
Michael, I have a question just on the Skadden. You made a comment about the $250,000 being fees until a term sheet. So should I understand that to mean that this is a capped fee arrangement, right, using their rates? So it's capped, we get to a term sheet, and so if it turns out that they spend time based on even the ESD rates, it gets you to 300,000, we're paying 250, or is it?
Well, the contract.
That's why I'm asking, is it capped or is it not?
They will stop at 250.
Okay, so it's not a catch.
Yes, but that's one of the benefits of having Bryant Ravino involved, is that if Skadden Arps drops out, we have another firm that's well-versed and ready to continue work.
Okay, but so, to say it another way, the expectation is that the 250 should get us to the term sheet?
Yes.
Is that a fair?
That is the
Okay.
expectation.
That's the expectation, but depends on the nature of the negotiations.
Yes.
And beyond the term sheet, the order of magnitude thought, I mean, I guess it depends on the deal size, basically.
It really depends on
And
the
complexity.
type of negotiation,
Yeah.
the amount of documents, the structure. Is it something that is negotiated in a matter of months? Does the approach change? And certainly, we're setting a $250,000 contract limit here, so we will come back to the board if necessary for a higher amount later on.
Do we have any other questions or comments from the directors? Do we have any comments from the public? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval for both entering into the contract with Skadden Arps as well as authorization to contract with Bryant Ravino LLP.
So move.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Just one
I
question.
will
Is this
now entertain a
arrangement?
motion.
Sorry, Karen. I'm sorry. I should ask before. But is this been used by ESTC in other contexts? I mean, it seems like a good arrangement to both have the MWB component, but also, as you're saying, to manage costs, because you want a top firm like Skadden, but not to be doing work where we don't need that level of expertise or cost.
The MWB issue is something that came up the last time we had brought on counsel, and so it's something that we wanted to address. In terms of the exact arrangement, I think they've been brought on before in a sub-arrangement, but again, we thought that this structure worked better. Richard,
They're working on the redevelopment of the parking lot for the Urban League project up at 122nd Street and Lenox, and they're basically working on that for us.
But I guess the two firms working together.
Two firms. I think I'm not sure that they're a sub. Liz, do you know if they're a sub? This is Eunice's project. I think they're reporting to us directly on that.
Yeah,
And that's the structure. As far as using this particular structure, there now seem to be sort of a large number of MWB and WBE firms that were able to do this, and were able to, that have sort of very sophisticated counsel that can assist us on these projects. So this is something that we're expanding into and trying, and we feel that doing it this way is having sort of separate firms and MSDC making decisions in terms of allocating work, that's a pretty effective way to do it. So
It'd be great if this is sort of novel and new to just hear back how that goes, both in terms of how you see it, just in terms of managing the project, and what we think the cost implication is for future work.
That's a very good idea. So we'll do that.
Sorry, Karen.
That's all right. I was now going to entertain a motion to conduct an executive session pursuant to paragraph H of subdivision 1, section 105 of the New York State Open Meetings Law, more specifically to discuss real estate negotiation issues relating to the development of the James A. Farley Building.
moves.
Is there a motion?
Second. Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Are we back?
Yeah. We're back, Karen.
All righty. Thank you. I would like to note for the record that no votes were taken during executive session. Is there any other business? If there's no other business, I want to thank everyone for your participation in today's meeting and call for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, take care, Karen.